And I will also start off with a very bad joke. So I hope you have the same sort of humor as me. There is a point to it though. But there's this person who goes to the doctor and they complain about their arm hurting whenever they're doing like this. And the doctor's response? Stop moving it like that. See? Bad one. But the even worse part is that that is basically what Apple said to their iPhone 4 users. Because if you accidentally bridged the little gap down on the left side, you will get dropped calls and lower bandwidth and what have you. And allegedly, there was a person who emailed Apple about this and complaining. And Engadget was kind enough to show that to the internet, allegedly. So if you look down below, this is what they responded. Stop holding it in that way. Basically what the doctor said. Now, for me, trying to blame the user, I mean, isn't it up to them how they hold their phone? I think it's just horrible practice to do that. So it ended up well for Apple anyways, and the doctor is probably still a doctor, but you could do better. It makes me think about a principle, the principle of least astonishment. So if a necessary feature has a high astonishment factor, it may be necessary to redesign that feature, meaning that our applications and web and our things should act in a way that the user is expecting without surprises, or they shouldn't pay the price for something being hip or cool or very beautiful if it's not usable. My name is Jessica Engström, and I have taught UX for developers around 10 years now. On my spare time, no, not on my spare time, on my actual paid time. Sorry, I hope my boss doesn't see this. No, actually my work is very fun. I am a community manager for a group of ethical hackers at Detectify. But I do have some spare time, and that is where I spend a lot of my time in the community with my husband, who's actually in the audience here. We do podcasts, streams, and events, and we have the umbrella name Coding After Work. So we live for the community, really. So if you are into any of that, feel free to join us. We have a lot of fun. But that's not why we're here. We're here because I want to give you 3 examples how to improve your UX. And I will also give you 3 examples, or actually the top 3 things that are messed up on the web and how to fix it. So the most common issues we have. But before that, I want us to take a step back, because there are some uncertainties and confusion around UI and UX, and it's nobody's fault. And you've probably seen images like this before, where you have UI, which is represented by the glass bottle of ketchup. And then you have UX, which is represented by the squeezy plastic bottle, more modern one, if you will. Or we even have the before UX and after UX. Again, the glass bottle gets the before UX, and the plastic squeezy bottle gets the after. Or we also see this with designs. We have a more basic design, and then we have a more colorful or pretty, if you will, design for the after. Now, I would say that UX isn't a NuGet package you can download. It isn't some magical pixie dust you can sprinkle on top of everything. I say that both of them have a UI, no matter if it's glass or plastic, or the designs we showed. And both of them has a UX, how we actually use the product. Now, most of these examples place the plastic bottle for good UX or after UX, right? But this person does not have a good experience. It's equally as much a UX, a user experience. It's the experience they're having. So my point is it can be a good UX and it can be a bad UX, but it's equally as much a UX. But this is my all-time favorite ketchup package. Because I like when we are trying to be inclusive as far as we can. And this one caters to those who likes to dip their fries and to those who likes to squeeze their fries instead with the ketchup or whatever you are putting your ketchup on, of course. So I like that one. I'm not sure why I do the ketchup thing because I don't even like ketchup that much, but it's a good example, right? Everybody has some sort of relationship to ketchup. Or is it just me? No, see? But as humans, we have limitations. Our sight is limited, our memory is limited, and our attention is definitely limited. So if we design with those limitations in our mind, we will benefit their users greatly. And if they are happy, they come back. So in psychology, there's something called cognitive load, and that's basically when, you know how your computer acts when you run up too many Visual Studio instances or too many video editing software or whatever heavy software you have, it will lag. It will get a little bit slower. Same is true for our brains. If we have too much information, if we have conflicting information, everything like that will slow us down. Also, too many choices. It sounds good that we have the freedom of choice, right? But if we have too many choices, it will also be a hurdle because we need to take a conscious decision around that. And I do have an example with unnecessary steps for the very end of my talk. It's my favorite example to bash on when it comes to unnecessary steps. But look at this number. Is this a number you will remember easily? Surely isn't a number I will remember easily. But if we split it up into easier consumable chunks like this, it's all of a sudden only 4 numbers I need to remember. Sure, it's 4 times, but it's only 4 numbers. And this is something we can use in our UIs as well, because if we have easier to consume pages and maybe forms, which I will get into in a bit, it will feel so much easier for the user, and we will reduce that cognitive load. So let's jump into the forms, because this is something we all love to hate as well. We are either tasked with setting them up or filling them in, which can be... Is it anyone who loves filling in forms? No? Funny. Regular form, nothing strange about it. We have a bunch of input boxes. We even have labels for everything. However, when we put it like this, we have a total of 32 visual fixations. So this is 32 places where the users need to stop, focus, read, move on. Stop, focus, read, move on. Because I have put the input labels on the left of our input box. And since we, at least in the Western world, read from left to right, up and down, we get a bunch of zigzags here. And that's also the reason why we interpret the label to the left of the input box as an own visual fixation. So if we actually group them together, we will perceive this as one unit. So by simply moving the input box label on top, we have almost half our visual fixations. We are now down to 18. But there are, of course, other things we can improve upon as well, like don't blindly use templates, or the last one we had and just add on the additional information we needed. Only ask for the things that you actually need to know. Like, for instance, is it interesting? Do we have any interest in what gender I identify with when I sign up for a blog newsletter? I don't think it's relevant. Same goes for age range. We can actually programmatically find that out because we're asking for the date of birth as well. And marital status, really? Is that still relevant data today? No, I don't think so. I mean, in some cases, of course, these things are interesting, but for a regular form, I think we can just remove it. I've also simplified, which you can't see right now, so let's go back to that. Date of birth, we can go from 3 drop-downs into 1 single input box, but there is a caveat which I will get back to in a second. But we can do that to reduce the amount of input boxes we have or selection boxes. Now we get to the name. Instead of asking for first name, last name, I have put it into a full name because in my case, we can actually look at it and it's not super important that I know that this is for sure your first name or last name for a newsletter, for instance. So I've changed that as well. So we have a bunch of zigzags still. We have now 9 visual fixations, so that's quite the difference. So let's scoot them into 1 single row. And for those of you who are very perceptive or very fast to count, I'm only showing 8 because the other one simply couldn't fit on the screen. So what can we do? Well, first of all, do we need the address, the shipping address? Or can we ask for that when we're actually shipping something to the customer or to the person? But just for the sake of it, let's say we need the address in this case. Split it up. And honestly, you can split it up anyway. If you have a full page, you can still split it up if it makes sense. Because to get back to the credit card numbering things, it's so much easier to consume. It feels less. If we have 3 pages to fill in, still feel less than 1 humongous one. Another thing I really, really like is the use of a progress bar and being upfront with the user that I expect you to fill in 3 pages. This can also lower stress and anxiety around how much this is to fill in. And it will also encourage more people to fill it in because you see I have cheated a little because we all want that achievement dopamine. So I'm halfway there, right? And I haven't even started. How hard can this be? This is actually really powerful. And we automatically feel a little bit more honest since we are showing up front that we want you to fill in 3 pages. Continue is usually what it says, right, on the button. Let's see, there it is. My case, I have chosen next step because I think it's a little bit clearer exactly what we're doing. In this case, we would probably get away with using continue because we have the progress indicator as well. But I feel like it doesn't hurt to be overly clear. Sometimes continue can be continue to the next step, continue to the next page, continue to whatever. It's not super obvious all the time. But also let's put the button on like straight down a line on the left because that is where your eyes are going. And as a bonus, if you're using some sort of screen enlargement tool, let me see if I'm in the way of that. Let me take a step here. You will not see it if you put it on the right side, or it will be very difficult to see it. So put it on the left side. Again, I'm talking generally for the Western world. Oh, there's the continue. Yeah, let's change that to next step. Helping the users with Smart Default. You all know this is amazing, right? When you get help when you're supposed to fill in. That's also very, very helpful. In the full name, for example, I'm very clear that I expect the first name, last name. And here's the caveat I was speaking about earlier. dates. That can be interesting, especially on the internet when we have an international use base. Be very clear on how you want me to submit the date, or what format you want it in, because it differs and it's a hassle. And also, we are using smart defaults here. However, if I mess up, I can still get help if we do it right. I will show you in a minute. Another thing that is very helpful is showing the user when they have succeeded with something. So in this case, they filled in the name, yay! We put a green frame around the input box to show that. However, we should not rely on color alone to help with the accessibility, because everybody doesn't see color the same way. So let's put a symbol in. Also, while we're at it and adding frames around our input boxes, mark the default one, mark the first one, and then carry on and showing the user exactly where they are, because that will be so much easier to know exactly where I am at. If I'm looking away, talking to a colleague, look back, oh right, where was I? Don't have to do that, because there's some sort of marking like this, in this case, where I'm using a blue frame. And now I'm going against what I just said. I'm using color alone. But I do that because I have twice the size of the frame, and also it's not crucial that we know exactly it's not a crucial function that someone will miss out on if they miss that this is twice as big, the frame around it. However, showing someone the wrong date, like this one, I have messed up and put in January instead of what the smart default asked me to. Again, I'm showing the frame in red, because in the Western world, we usually think that red is a symbol for stop or error, and green is for success or go. I am using a symbol as well here, because I think it's important that everyone knows if this is wrong. However, I'm actually not being that super inclusive, because in some areas, even in Europe in some areas, the check mark is for wrong, if you will, and the cross, what do you call it? X is for something succeeded, and I'm using it the other way around. So that could also be very confusing if you can't see color. So I should actually find symbols that are better than this. So that's my homework. But I did say that we need to be clear about the dates. So wrong format, that's not going to help the user. So what format do you want? Don't make the user think, because that will take processing power, and we don't want that, because they will perceive your application or web as slow. Instead, think for the user and say, please, this is the format I want, which is so much easier for everyone. And we will get the data, they won't get angry, win-win. So with a few steps, we went from this one to this one. Of course, there are still things we can improve upon, like always having an exit way for the user so they can quit whenever they want, to make sure that we can go back in the form, because 3 pages in, I realize I'm using my work email and I shouldn't. Then I want to go back and change that out. Having contrasting input boxes is also very good, because I know it could be prettier, but it's clearer for everyone, and it will be a better accessibility-wise if we are actually using a contrasting color. Now, we all want our users to navigate through our applications and webs with ease. That's the whole point of it, right? So we need to take advantage of the natural cognitive process that we have as humans. And that means we need to reduce interference. If things are arranged in a way that we understand the hierarchy, things are very easy to understand. But if we don't, yeah, we will have a little issue. Like this example. Very easy to read the text, the written color, if it is colored congruently or in a neutral color. But when I scramble up the colors, all of a sudden it takes a little bit more brain power to actually read the written color. I mean, we can read it. It's not like it's impossible, but it will take longer time. We will have interference. Like this one. Now, I've put in this image. I have read this image hundreds of times, but just for a few hundred milliseconds, I will still read stop on the red one. Because again, in the Western world, we associate red with stop and green with go. So let me take you to IKEA. This is, I mean, I am in Sweden. This is IKEA in Stockholm. And they are doing a very good thing. A little bit difficult to see the colors here when we have a purple light, but the indoors or the gates, those are lit up in green, which is very welcoming. I understand exactly that this is where I'm supposed to walk in. The out is blue. Yeah, sure. I understand. Nothing strange. I mean, it's not forbidden to go there. And these gates are getting more and more common in Sweden, especially since basically all shops nowadays have self-checkouts and stuff like that, and then they have these gates. And they're super cool because you can put whatever etching on you want, and you can also change the colors the way you want. So this is another shop very close to where we live. It's not the daily shop I go to, but I've been there probably 30 times or so. And I'm probably going to embarrass myself now, but every single time I go here, I walk up to the gates and I'm like, oh no, that's the exit. And I go back and like, no, wait, this is their logo. They are on brand. But it also makes for that little conflict. So we will have some conflict in information. Again, a few seconds max, but it will add up. Also true for symbols as well. This is another shopping mall in Sweden. Very clear, I should not go in on the left side. I should go in on the right side where it says in. We walk in through the doors and bam, I'm not allowed in. Because now we have a cross or an X. And on the other side it says out, but in reverse. So they are thinking right, but they never thought about the door being translucent so we can actually see it from behind. And again, I understand that I'm allowed to go in, but it's still that little bit of conflict, so it's not always about color. So yeah. Instead, if we give the users clear instructions and clear error messages in front of everything, that will make all the difference in the world. Who doesn't want clear instructions, right? But if we give the users things like this, error messages like this, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to close down the application or call the fire department? There's no way of knowing. Or this Swedish bank app. Do I even have an account left? Where's my money? They scare me with the red exclamation point over here and then null, which most of us doesn't even know what it means. So yeah, not helpful in the least. So let's look at what makes a good error message. And let's take the 404 page not found as an example, because again, that's something that we run into from time to time. Step 1, use plain language. And if we look at this message, they sort of are But they are also using a lot of tech jargon, which everybody doesn't understand, and that can be a little bit scary. So no points for them. A good error message is also actionable. And here we have nothing. We don't even have a suggestion on how to solve it or where to go next. So depending on what our application or web is doing, at least put a search bar in, or take the easy way out and just put a link to the first page. Problem solved. So no points. Short, keep it short. That is also very good. And they do get that point because it is short. Because nobody, you know the EULAs, nobody reads those. Doesn't actually add to the clarity if we have a whole 5 paragraphs around the error message. So keep it short. Explain how to fix it if it's fixable. Because we all make mistakes and the users will actually understand that. But if we have a lot of uncertainties, like it might have been removed, it might be temporarily unavailable. What does that mean? Can I just refresh? Will it be back tomorrow? Again, no way of knowing. So they won't get that point either. Sometimes, of course, we can't provide a solution for exactly everything that can go wrong, but we can give options or a way around to solve the issue. If we have a shop, this is a perfect place to put our most popular items or whatever we want to sell the most, or links to different departments and stuff like that, because the user will feel that we are very helpful to showing them stuff, and they will feel less like they made an oopsie, and we will sell more. So it's a win-win again. And never ever put blame on the user. I've said it before, I will say it again, but be humble about it. We're not directly blaming the user here. We don't say you made a mistake, but we're not taking responsibility either. And when we use words like error, wrong, and even the color red in some instances, it will inadvertently put some blame on the user. So try to be humble about it instead. So let's take the same example, but a different page. We are using plain language. It is actionable because we have some pages that we are providing them. It is short. We are giving them a solution, or at least a workaround, since we can direct them to other URLs. And we are humble about it. We are not blaming the user. So 5 steps, quite the difference. And again, this is for all error messages, not only the 404 pages. Now, speaking about 404 pages, you can still be funny, you can still be witty, or whatever your brand is, like Marvel, for instance. They're quite witty in their 404 page that they used. And they are taking responsibility, and they are also actionable because they have, I can go back in time, or I have a few links up there. GitHub, I can't talk about 404 pages without mentioning GitHub. They have a funny one. They have a bunch of them that they cycle through. They're true to their brand. I can do other stuff if I need to. So it's still actionable. Now, being consistent and not reinventing the wheel, so to say, is also something that is very good. Because if we stray too far out from platform and design guidelines and what have you, and industry standards, we will get some issues. Learnability will improve if we actually keep to standards, or at least in the same wheelhouse as the standards. Like this one. What is this? What is this a picture of? Do you have any ideas? A leaf? Yes. Right? So if it's a button, what would it do? Not as clear, is it? This is actually create new. I think and hope that it's a very bad design quill, or it's a symbol for, well, at least you're not sending paper, so you're eco-friendly. I'm not sure. The funny thing is that this is from a learning management system from a school I teach at. Everywhere else on the platform, they were using the pen, but here. So it will take a few milliseconds, or a few hundred milliseconds, I should say, to actually realize that, wait, where's the pen? They had to go back on it and actually change it, so yay. They actually made it, but it is a problem, especially with Create New, because we have so many standards that we don't have any standard. We have Twitter is using a plus and a quill, a real quill. We have the leaf, obviously. We have the stars and the pens and what have you. These are only a few of them, which means that it will take a little bit longer for the user. It will slow them down. However, there's also examples of this from the real world. Are you ready? Are you supposed to pee or wash your hands here? Yeah. Exactly. So if you are a person who sits down doing their business, this makes no sense. But if you're a person who stands up doing their business, it feels vaguely familiar. And there might be an accident because they have labeled this now. And I think that if you go through the trouble to actually label every single one of them, there has been more than one accident. Yes. So keep to standards. Sorry, I knew I was going to get you. So if we instead have clear standards, it will be so much easier. So this is from the UK. This is from the Netherlands, Poland, and Sweden. Very similar, not identical, but very, very similar. I know exactly what's going to happen here if I drive down that road. And that is that I won't be able to turn around because that's me. So this is what we want to strive for. Or even this one. This is taken just outside of the venue. We have the give way sign. This is what it looks like in Sweden. Definitely not identical. We have a little bit different coloring. We don't have the text in Sweden, but I understand exactly what's going on because we haven't strayed too far outside of standards. So this is what we are trying to strive for. Now, hierarchy is something that is super important because it will make things so much easier for the user. It will feel so much faster for the user. And it will help to reduce that cognitive load we were talking about earlier. And as humans, we do not read pages, we scan them, which will be a little bit of a problem. And so you guys at home and the people in here, my husband is here on the front row. He has seen these talk probably 2 million times now, and he is staring me with "I will kill you" eyes right now, because he has been trying to beat this system every single time, but he fails because of that hierarchy. I am obviously telling you that this is super important, and this is a little bit important, but not as important as this one. I'm sorry. I should remove this whenever you're in the talk, I think. So what this means is that we need to figure out what is the most important thing in your web page or application. And we need to give that the highest hierarchy. We also need to figure out what's the least important thing. Can we remove that and put it in a secondary page or something similar? Do we even need it? This is another example of hierarchy, and I know the contrast is a little iffy, so I will fill in the super light gray bars they do have here. Which speaker is giving what session? It did make it a little bit clearer now, right? No. This is not good hierarchy because it's confusing. So let's look at another example. Let's take a blog. We have the first page We have a bunch of preview text and blog headlines that we want our users to read. The first thing we can do is use proximity to make sure that they understand which header belongs to what text, because it's not clear here. So we don't do like the other conference. So there you go. Now, what is it that we want to show the user? We want to show them an overview, and we want them to just pick a topic and read it, right? Click on it. So we need the subheaders to stand out a little bit because they're not supposed to read the whole text here. This is just a preview text. So I'm going to differentiate them so they are standing out a little bit. So now they got higher up in the hierarchy. Now we have a little bit more room, so let's move down everything so we have a little bit of spacing between the heading and the content that we have. But we can do other things to show hierarchy. Maybe all of the blog posts aren't the same, of the same importance. Maybe these 4 are the latest one, or the most read ones, or whatever is important to you. And as a reader, I can come in here and see, okay, so these 4 are the ones I should concentrate on. If I have time, I can also read these 3 little smaller ones that are either older or not as important, which means you already made the decision for me, which is awesome. I don't have to think. So let's click on one of the blog posts, and this is the blog post. Now I want to ask you again, what is the least important thing on this page? Do you have an example? What do you think is the least important thing here? The subheader? Yeah. Yeah, that's a subheader for the text. Yeah. Could be. Want to know what I think? The header. Of course, because the user already chose what topic to read on. They know they wanted to read quotes from the 10th Doctor. So how many times do I expect the users to actually read the header when they're in the actual article? Once, maybe twice? Yet we keep giving it the largest, biggest font we can find. So I'm actually going to fix that on my blog. However, now it looks like the subheaders are super important. They might be important, but they're not that important. So I'm just giving them the same size as the rest of the content and making them bold. That's what I do. So the one on the right side, the after, if you will, looks like something where the content is the most important thing. This is something I need to read or want to read. And the one on the left side, or the before, have 4 in-your-face elements that are trying to compete to get your attention, which means you will read the headers and the subheaders over and over again inattentionally. And that's just how we work. And that is also the interference I was talking about earlier. Now I will say one thing, and that is, if you are going to make your header smaller and you are doing this on the web, you need to restyle the header. Do not go from, let's say this is an H1, do not change it to an H3 or similar, because it's already have the styling you want. You need to restyle the H1 if that's an H1, because you will keep the accessibility. You will still be able to, in a screen reader, understand that this is actually the header and it's most important in the hierarchy. So we need to restyle. I can't stress that enough. So let's throw ourselves into the world of accessibility. WebAIM, or web accessibility in mind, they do a sort of annual-ish research on evaluation on accessibility of the top 1 million pages on the web. So that's a lot, top 1 million. And they have so much interesting data. And they are using Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG, to make that analysis, if you will. And they are looking into things from everything from auditory, physical, neurological diversity. They are looking at multiple different aspects of accessibility, which is great. Of course, they can't cover everything, but we have come a long way. So the sad part is that 97.4% of all the top 1 million pages on the web has issues, has accessibility issues, which means basically all the web. Good news, though, is that 97% of those, or close to 97% of those, is only within 6 different categories. So if we concentrate on a handful of issues, we will make the internet such a better place to be. So let's look at the most common accessibility issues that we have on the web, which is contrast. Now, contrast is the differences in brightness or illumination between 2 colors. And we measure that in a scale. So we have 1 to 1, which is white text on white background or black on black. And we have 21 to 1, which is pure white on pure black, or vice versa. And as a reference, we have red on 4 and blue on 8.6. Now we have recommendations here. We have minimal recommendations on, no, we have recommendation on minimal contrast, I should say. And the minimum recommendation for most of our text is 4.5. And I think I've made my point why this is a minimum recommendation, because the contrast isn't super great. My recommendation is that you look in the, there's 2 different, this is called AA, and then we have an even higher recommendation, which is AAA, which starts at 7. But again, it's not a whooping, it's not great. But this is like the bare minimum we need to have. My suggestion is to be somewhere between 14 and 16, because then you will get a bunch of contrast, but it won't give you eye strain. Because you know, when you read white text on black background, right? Hurts your eyes, and you will get that little halo, and you will read that text forever when you look away from the computer. Yeah. So we don't want that. So somewhere around 14, 16 is perfect, I would say. That's my absolute favorite. There's a lot of resources out there that can help us with that. Contrastchecker.com, very easy to remember. We have WebAIM, we have browser dev tools. They have so many hidden accessibility tools, you would not believe it. And tomorrow, Dominika will actually have a session just about that, how you can elevate your accessibility using Chrome DevTools. So I highly recommend that one as well, because there's a ton of good stuff we already have built in. So let's look at this second most common issue. Images and alternative text. We are not good developers here. We have 2/3 of all the images on internet fail in this. And on top of that, we are sometimes a little, how do I say that? Lazy? Yeah? Yeah, you know what I'm saying. And sometimes we put up stuff like this. We have an alt text that says image or graphic or blank. Don't do that. Doing this is kind of a slap in the face for anyone who actually relies on alt text. We should not put out any images without alt text, but definitely we shouldn't do this because it's of no help. But we have a bunch of great tools now, right? We have the OpenAI that can even write code. We have AIs that can interpret images or even make you into art. This one which, by the way, I have stickers on for anyone who wants that later. Problem is, this cat really, really wants to be a unicorn. That's its purpose in life. However, it is actually interpreted as a parrot, or it was a couple of years ago, a year ago, I think. Today, it's a cat wearing a garment, which of course is a little bit closer, but we're missing the context that this is actually a cat who wants to become a unicorn. So even though the AIs are fantastic in interpreting what the images have in them or what they depict, it cannot do context yet. So we need to be wary of that when we write our alt text. So let's take this image as an example, because we can't have too many cats in a talk, right? No. We can use alt text in two different ways. We can actually put it straight under the picture. Problem solved. We're done. And we can also use it in the image tag as well. So we put it in the alt attribute if we don't want to show the actual text. If we are, actually I should do this. Two things we should not do when it comes to alt text. We should not be redundant, which means if we have already the text down under the cat, do not repeat the same text in the alt as well. We can actually keep the alt text just empty, because it will still pick up on the content for the image. Don't include things like image of or graphics of, because that will be redundant. Again, the interpreters will read image of a cat if I put in the text image of a cat. So we don't even have to do that. But we also have a couple of things that we should do when it comes to alt text, and that is being accurate in actually describing the picture or the content or the function if it has a function. In our example, we have no function. It's purely decorative, so we don't have to describe that. But it is important that the cat has festive sparkly antler to the story, but it's not that important that it actually have yellow eyes and there's red pom-poms and green pom-poms. That is a little bit too redundant, so or too much information. So let's keep the short description. A few words, up to maybe a short sentence or two. That's about where we want to be when it comes to the alt text. One more. The third most common accessibility issue on the web is missing input labels. And we already talked about forms, so I won't jump down to that rabbit hole too deep. However, there is one way we can solve this issue, and that is label all the things. So make sure that we are using the correct labels in our code, and there's actually really great information and documentation on web accessibility in mind that can help us with this as well. So I promised you to show my favorite thing to bash about unnecessary steps. So I will take you through a time report system, something we all have to do from time to time. So I go to this page and I log in, and there's a button that says go directly to time report. And I'm like, yay! And I click on that and I'm taken to this page where I need to log in. Now, because there's no way on the web that you can know that I'm already logged in, right? Okay, I'm humoring them, I'm logging in, and I'm taken to this page, which has completely different colors, completely different design, and I need to click on go to time report. So I click on time report. Guess what? I need to log in again. Because again, we're not, no? Yeah. And finally, I am taken to the page where I can actually report my time. Now, this page itself has a whole plethora of issues. However, that's not why we're here. These 5 pages, I had to log in on these 3. These had different designs. And I mean, from just a security perspective, I'm not even sure I'm on the same page anymore because there's not the same logos, not the same colors, nothing. And I know I'm a little bit impatient. This takes about 16, 17 seconds. But if it actually took me to that page when I asked it to, what would it take, a second? Let's say 2, because otherwise my math won't work. So I am wasting 15 seconds every single time I go to this system, this time report system. Every single time. Doesn't sound like much, and I told you I'm impatient, but it actually adds up to 5 minutes every month, which is a very quick coffee break. But that's for one person, in one system, one time. Now, let's say this is an internal tool we're using on a day-to-day basis, and it has that lag of 15 seconds. Let's say we're only using it 3 times per day. We're probably using it a lot more, but let's say 3 to be fair. And we're 200 employees. And all of a sudden, those 5 minutes are 600 man-hours per year that we are just wasting. And now it's not only about my personal user experience, it's also about the companies completely wasting money because the customer won't see this internal tool, so we won't give you any resources to fix it. And they get basically nothing from these 600 hours. Well, they get disgruntled employees and a person who goes and talks at conferences like NDC and complain, but that's not good, is it? So if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this talk, that is that UX should not come as an afterthought at the end stages of the development. And it should not be that feeling of, oh, I need to make it usable for this and that disability or whatever it is. It should not be that. There are different ways to look at our disabilities and differentiating. We are so different as humans. So if we, for instance, enable one-handed navigation for a person who has amputated their arm, we are also including people who have newborn, because they are usually only available, they only have one hand available because they have the baby on the arm. And we are also including people who have temporarily injured themselves, which in effect only also have one arm. And this is also true for auditorial, physical, speech, cognitive variations that we have as humans. So stop seeing it as a disability and start seeing it as a way to include more people. Thank you. And I do have the stickers here. I do have the cat stickers and some others here if you want them.